Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to this webinar. My name is Brian Novel, and I'll be your organizer for the session. And hosting today is Gerrie Botha. I have a short video I'd like to play just before handing over to our presenter.
Plumbers are excluded from the Occupational Health and Safety Act 1993 pressure equipment regulations. However, an exception thereto allows plumbers to install geysers up to 450 litres, provided they're installed according to SANS 10254 and manufactured according to SANS 151. In celebration of World Toilet Day, Articulated offers a 10% discount on the SANS 10254, the electric water heater course. Visit IOPSA training today to book your online course and learn not only what the SANS 10254 requirements are, but also why they are.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's all from my side. I'd like to hand over to our presenter.
Right, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for taking out the time, and hopefully we will give you some food for thought this morning. And we are going to talk about thermostatic mixing valves today. So let's get right into it. So the contents of this will deal with the functions of the thermostatic mixing valve. How does it work? What does our SANS codes or regulations say about the installation of that component? How do we install it? And then also we will be looking at the testing and commissioning of this valve. So here are some examples of this thermostatic mixing valve, and most people, you know, there are a couple of names that people are maybe more familiar with, such as a tempering valve, and it's also been called a blending valve. So here's 4 different manufacturers' products for the same item. So yeah, there's quite a variety of these things on the market. And when we're looking at the function, a thermostatic mixing valve blends or mixes hot water with cold water to ensure a constant and safe outlet temperatures at the terminal points to prevent scalding. So that's the main purpose of this. And in recent times, we've had quite a number of complaints about water being too hot, and which is amazing if we think that in general, women like to use hot water when they bath and even shower. So yeah, but we get these quite frequently where there's a problem with the temperature of the water being too hot, and that is the purpose of this valve, is to mix hot water and cold water to ensure that you've got a safe temperature at your tap. So as you can see on the left-hand side, hot water coming in, cold water coming in on the right-hand side, and then a mixed blend going to the terminal point. How does it work? Right in the middle of these two, you will see that little circle here, which is an inflated version of what this thing looks like inside. And you will see that there's a wax-loaded probe that's sitting inside the valve here and there. And that, similar to our safety valve or TP valve, that wax, when it heats up, will expand, and it will then either open or close your hot water feed to the valve. So that will then obviously cause your cold water to flow in, and you will have a mixture going out. So very simple, very basic, but very important. And these valves also need to comply to SANS 1299. And I think that's one of the most important things, is that whenever you purchase one of these valves, make sure that it does comply and it is compliant to SANS 1299. Right, so what does our regulations or SANS codes say about the installation of a tempering or a blending valve? In 10252, part 1, section 6.617 says, if the heating medium cannot be safely controlled, the maximum temperature of the water heater to 60 degrees Celsius, a tempering valve shall be installed near the water heater in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. So obviously that is, I think, quite clear that in the case where your water temperature in the geyser cannot be sufficiently controlled, you need to install a tempering valve in that situation. And then it goes further to say, and should the maximum temperature need to be thermostatically controlled at terminal fittings, and now we're talking specifically about frail care units, people with disabilities, infants, even retirement homes, there might be a need for a lower temperature. In that instance, we also need to install a thermostatic mixer, which is obviously manually controlled. So once again, in SANS 10252, Part 1, Section 75142 says, talking about the maximum supply temperature, and here it says, unless otherwise required, the temperature of water that discharges from any terminal water fitting supplied from a hot water installation shall not exceed 60 degrees Celsius. However, thermostatic mixers may be required to achieve a lower supply temperature. So although, and you will most probably recall that there's also a regulation stating that your water temperature in your geyser should reach 60 degrees Celsius at least for 1 hour a day, which would then basically tell us that we need to set our thermostat at 60 degrees. So it would be safe to assume that in a lot of instances, the water temperature may be too high at the delivery point, and we need to think about what do we do to make sure that we deliver a safe temperature which will prevent people from being scalded. So there are two, basically in terms of 10.10.6, which is the solar geyser installation, and I think this is where this becomes even more important, and we all know that in the case of a solar geyser, there is no way that we can stop the sun when the water has reached the temperature. So in this instance, I don't think it's really negotiable. So in section 4.3.1, it says, the system assembly shall comprise, under C, it says, where water temperature supplied to a terminal is higher than the requirements of SANS 10252 Part 1, which I just referred to, the 60 degrees Celsius, tempering valves that comply with the requirements of SANS 1299 shall be used to achieve the requirements of that regulation. So there is a clear instruction that in the case of a solar geyser installation, we need to ensure that a tempering valve has been installed. One of the unfortunate things, I've done quite extensive research on this, and amazingly enough, I couldn't find anything specifically telling us what is a safe temperature, and specifically in the instances that I've mentioned earlier, like pediatric wards, frail care centers, retirement homes, facilities for the able. There's nothing in the regulation that gives us an indication or that gives us an instruction what is a safe temperature. The only one that I could come across is in SANS 10400S, which is the facilities for disabilities or disabled people, under section 412.2. there is a recommendation, and it says it is recommended that the maximum temperature of water discharging from any hot water outlet in a building should not exceed 45 degrees Celsius. This is of particular importance in ablutions accessible by persons with disabilities. So, and I think what we just need to maybe clarify is not everybody with a disability may be sensitive for this, but we tend to forget there are certain or different types of disabilities. And in the case of people with serious back injuries or a disability due to a back injury, there might be the situation where the person's touch is obviously not what it should be, and that person may not even realize that he's being scalded or burned by hot water until it's too late. So yeah, it's definitely something that we need to look at going forward, to put something in place to protect people like these. How's it being installed? And it's very simple. As you would recall, in the SANS code that says it should be installed close to the geyser. So in this instance, you will see our hot water coming from the hot water cylinder connected to the one side of the valve, cold water feed to the other side, and then the mixing blend is going to the tap or to the terminal fitting. So it's quite simple. And then in solar geysers, here's a typical example where, again, our hot water connected to the one side, cold water to the other, and the mixed blend is then directed towards our terminal points. One thing that what I think is important is that we cannot assume that the valve that we've purchased off the shelf is automatically set at the correct temperature. Now, we all know there is a common assumption that the tempering valve is set at 55 degrees Celsius. That's a common assumption, but I would warn to say do not assume that that is correct. We cannot just buy something and then assume it's correct, and then afterwards, when we have a problem, then we start to think, oh, maybe I should have done something. So in this situation, when we do the commissioning, most tempering valves can be manually adjusted. And there's just a picture of two. On the right-hand side, there's a picture of a cut-through of a valve like this. It's got an adjustment knob at the top. And I would recommend that you use a temperature gauge or a thermostat or whatever to measure the temperature after installation to make sure that the temperature delivered is safe. The picture at the bottom on the right-hand side is just another way of adjusting. Some of the valves you need to actually remove the cap and then manually adjust with a spanner or screwdriver to achieve the correct temperature. So test the delivery temperature after installation and adjust as needed. And once again, I think maybe although the regulation says that in the case of frail care and some facilities, we need to install a thermostatic mixer, it might be not a bad idea to adjust your temperature of the delivery lower than the 55 or whatever to adjust to the conditions that you are installing this in. So we get quite frequently questions about, and again, pointing mostly towards retirement homes and villages and frail cares. So it would be advisable to adjust the water temperature according to the consumer or the client's needs. And then the last thing there is to test and ensure that the water flow stops when a cold water supply is interrupted. And that is part of the SANS 1299 that I referred to earlier, is that when the cold water is interrupted, the cold water flow is interrupted, there should not be any water coming out of that valve. So that's just another test to make sure that we do have a safe installation and that everything is working according to what the regulation says. I've basically, and yeah, obviously it was very short and sweet, but I think, in view of the importance of all of these things happening around us, it's just a good thing to understand how these things work and what is the correct thing to do. Byron, do we have questions? I think I saw a question coming up.
We don't have a question. We have a hand raised up, so I'm going to allow him to talk and see if he can. Normally doesn't go there. Rian, you can talk.
Rian? Rian, are you there? Can I suggest that if there's questions or comments, please place your comments in the Q&A so that we can address those. There we go. See, there's one coming in now. Yeah, Colin, thank you. How can you not love plumbing? Yeah, we all. Richard Bailey, do all tempering valves have the adjustable temperatures? I do not think all of them have. And I think that's important to understand that, as I said, most of them do, and I don't think all of them have. So maybe make sure that if you do buy a valve, if you do need a valve to be installed in places like retirement homes, that you maybe obtain an adjustable one so that you would be able to adjust the temperature. Rian, yeah, chat is disabled. I don't know. We try to get you online. Maybe if you can just type your answer or your question in here. What? Brian Holridge. Brian, the question that you have posted is not looking at what we are dealing with today. So I don't know whether we need to answer that, but let's have a look. What size hot water cylinder can be installed by a plumber in a roof space without consulting an engineer? Well, you know, it's as we know that the standard or the basic size of geysers that we install is either mostly 150 or 200, so that could be done fairly safe. But when we're talking about consulting an engineer, it's mostly about the structure or the support of the geyser where we might need to consult an engineer for rational design for the support of that geyser. And in most instances, we're looking at 250, 300 liters where that is a requirement, but it might also be a requirement in other instances where you can see the structure is weak, not strong enough. So one of those where it might go either way. Pascal, what are other solutions to prevent scalding? As I said, other solutions is the mixing, the thermal mixing valve, a thermal mixer, the manually adjustable mixer. However, we will all know and understand that, especially with our water scarcity that we are living with, it is, you're going to waste a lot of water to get to the correct temperature. So in my personal opinion, and I think the correct way is to look at a thermal mixing valve or a tempering valve, as we just discussed. Rian, what is the point of a tempering valve at the geyser? It should be installed at the point of use. Well, in terms of the regulation number 1, it says that that valve needs to be installed close to the geyser. And I think it's all about distribution of hot water throughout the facility. So if you install this valve at the point of use, in other words, at a specific tap or close to that tap, you exclude the rest of the installation from that controlled temperature. So I think that is what it's all about. Yes, Rian, I understand what you're saying. Consider the distance to point of use of the geyser. Obviously, that needs to be considered in every installation. So again, even if you have longer distances, maybe just adjust the temperature and test at the terminal point to make sure that your temperature is correct. So that's the only other way that I can think of to mitigate that situation. I don't know whether there are any other questions, Byron. Rian, thank you for that comment. In England, yes, you did it that way, but we are not in England now. We are in South Africa. So we stick to what our regulations dictate us to do. So yes, although it's happening in England that way, you know what they say, when in Rome, do like the Romans do. So yes, it might be, again, I think it's maybe you need to look at the installation and if you feel it's necessary to do it that way, then you do it that way. However, it might be quite a costly affair if you have to install a valve like this at every delivery point. So you need to maybe have a look at your installation and see whether or what is the best option for you to do it. Sorry, Byron, you wanted to say?
No, thank you very much. I don't think we have any more questions. I think we'll give it a couple of seconds just to see if there's any last ones. But
Okay.
thank you very much for this morning.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I see Steve didn't come back. So, but I think we've dealt with the topic. But if there are any other questions, please feel free to send us an email, and then we can have a look at those questions and answer at one-on-one. So thank you very much for joining us this morning. Maybe just one or two reminders from IOPSA side is that please remember that we do offer installers training for electrical geyser installations throughout the country. And we have now recently also started with installers training for drainage systems. So please keep an eye on your WhatsApp groups, so that if you do have a need for that, you can join. And I can maybe just mention, in the case of Gauteng, we have got a drainage installation training session tomorrow at Cheka in Randfontein. So please get that information and join us if you have the need for that. Byron, I don't know if there's any new questions, then we can maybe.
We have a question here from Colin. There's a copper class 2 around solar install. So mix it after that because the other pipe downstream won't properly comply.
Well, class 2, your outer diameter will be 22 millimeters. So my assumption would be that it would fit in that valve. So the fact that it's class 2 should not change the placement of this valve. Rian, I beg to differ. You're saying our tempering valves are not really serviceable. I don't agree with that statement. There might be some that's not serviceable, but in most instances, I do know that they are serviceable and adjustable. So maybe you should look at another supplier or another product that gives you that opportunity. All right, guys, if there's nothing else, thank you, Byron. Thank you for joining us, and have a good time, good luck, and stay safe.
Thank you, and have a blessed week.